Have you ever wondered what the root of the Israel-Palestine conflict is? Well, it's a complex issue with deep historical roots. The conflict can be traced back to the late 19th century with the rise of the Zionist movement. Zionism was a political movement born in Europe, advocating for the establishment of a Jewish state in what was then the Ottoman Empire-controlled territory of Palestine. The goal was to create a homeland for the Jewish people who had faced centuries of persecution throughout Europe. In the early 20th century, this idea gained significant traction, especially after the Balfour Declaration in 1917. This was a letter from the British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to Lord Rothschild, a leader of the British Jewish community. The letter expressed the British government's support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This support from a world superpower catapulted the Zionist movement into the global spotlight and intensified Jewish immigration to Palestine. However, this land was not empty. It was home to an Arab population that had lived there for centuries. The increasing Jewish immigration was seen as a threat by the Arab inhabitants, leading to tensions between the two communities. The situation took a drastic turn during and after World War II. The horrors of the Holocaust led to an immense surge in Jewish immigration as survivors sought refuge. The world was sympathetic to the plight of the Jews, and international support for a Jewish state grew. However, the Arab inhabitants of Palestine saw this as an encroachment on their land and their rights. They too had national aspirations, seeking independence from British rule and the establishment of an Arab state in Palestine. And so, two national movements, each with legitimate aspirations and historical claims, found themselves at odds over the same piece of land. This was not a simple dispute over territory. It was a clash of national identities, histories, and aspirations. And thus, the stage was set for a clash of nationalisms, as both Jews and Arabs claimed the same land as their own. The birth of Israel in 1948 was not a peaceful one. This year marked the establishment of the State of Israel, a significant moment in history that was met with immediate opposition. The neighboring Arab states, refusing to accept the partition of Palestine, declared war against Israel, igniting what would be known as the First Arab-Israeli War. In a fight for survival, Israel defended its newly claimed territories. The war was a tumultuous period, one filled with battles and negotiations, until finally, in 1949, the armistice agreements were signed. These agreements marked the end of the official hostilities, with Israel holding more territory than initially granted by the United Nations partition plan. However, the cessation of this war did not mean the end of the conflict. Far from it. The borders were drawn, but the tension was far from over. This war was just the beginning of a long and complicated conflict. Fast forward to 1967, and another significant event in the Israel-Palestine conflict unfolds. The Six-Day War, a swift but impactful military campaign, saw Israel facing off against an Arab coalition led by Egypt, Jordan and Syria. Within a mere 6 days, Israel emerged victorious, seizing control of not just the Sinai Peninsula and Golan Heights, but also the West Bank and Gaza Strip. This victory, however, came with severe repercussions. Israel's occupation of these territories sparked a surge in Palestinian nationalism, a flame that has never quite been extinguished. Palestinians, dispossessed and displaced, yearned for a homeland of their own, intensifying their struggle against what they viewed as an occupying force. The fallout from the Six-Day War was far-reaching, its echoes resonating through the decades. The territories seized by Israel became hotbeds of tension, the heart of the ongoing Israel-Palestine conflict. The occupation of these territories further fueled the conflict and intensified the struggle for Palestinian statehood. The late 20th century saw a rise in Palestinian resistance and attempts at peace. As we journeyed into the twilight of the 20th century, the landscape of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict saw a significant shift. The First Intifada, a grassroots rebellion marked by civil disobedience and widespread protests, erupted in the late 80s. This uprising was a spontaneous response to years of frustration, leading to a notable escalation in the conflict. In the mid-90s, the world witnessed an effort to quell the storm. The Oslo Accords, brokered under the auspices of the United States, aimed to establish a framework for peace. However, this was followed by the Second Intifada at the dawn of the new millennium, which was marked by an increase in violence and a deepening of mistrust. The Camp David summit, though ambitious in its scope, couldn't bridge the gaps. The peace process, much like a flickering candle in a gusty night, struggled to stay alight. Despite these attempts, peace remained elusive. So, where does the conflict stand today? As we navigate the present state of the Israel-Palestine conflict, it's evident that it remains deeply entrenched and complex. The ongoing occupation of Palestinian territories by Israeli forces continues to be a central point of contention. This occupation, particularly in the West Bank, has been marked by a continued expansion of Israeli settlements, a point of intense international criticism. Concurrently, the Gaza Strip, another flashpoint in the conflict, experiences a stringent blockade. This has led to a severe humanitarian crisis, with the United Nations warning that the region could be uninhabitable by the year 2030. The peace process, once a beacon of hope, is currently stalled, with both sides appearing more entrenched than ever in their respective positions. The future of the Israel-Palestine conflict remains uncertain, but understanding its history is crucial in making sense of today's headlines.